Welcome to this lecture on security, exploring privileges with grant and revoke. In this lesson, we will be working with two user accounts. The root or super user account, which we have already created when we installed MySQL, and the Jones account. Under the root account, we will begin by creating a new user account for Jones. Under the root account, we will then grant limited privileges to Jones on the TAL database. Next, we'll log in as Jones and create a Workbench connection. Then, as Jones, we will log in, demonstrate the privileges and also the limitations on Jones user security, and then log out. Finally, we will resume our role as root, log in, and revoke all privileges from user Jones. Let's begin by demonstrating how to create the Jones user. To begin, we'll log in to MySQL using our super user or root privilege. Once logged on, in a query window, we will issue the command create user Jones at localhost, identified by password. In this case, Jones is the username, localhost is the domain from which Jones is permitted to log on, in this case locally, and password is the actual password. Obviously, in practice, we would use a much more secure password. It's also best practice to require that Jones change their password upon their first login so that their password is known only to them. Let's execute the command. We see that the command created user Jones successfully. Next, let's grant limited privileges on the TAL database to user Jones. With the Jones account created, we'll next issue a grant command to grant certain privileges to the user. We're continuing under the root privilege, the root login for the time being. The command we'll use is grant select on tal.customer to Jones at localhost. This command will grant the select privilege, but only the select privilege, and not on the entire database, but only on the customer table. It is also possible to grant more granular privileges, such as the ability to select only certain columns on that table. We can also issue similar commands on other tables and views and other database objects. Additionally, we can add select, update, delete, and other privileges. In this case, the Jones user will be able to select the contents of the customer table, but not change them, as we'll see subsequently. Now it's time to create a connection in MySQL Workbench for the Jones user and to log in. Now let's create a SQL Workbench connection for the Jones user. We'll add a new SQL connection. We'll call this connection Jones. We'll change the username to Jones, and we'll change the default schema to TAL. When we test the connection, we'll be prompted to enter a password for Jones. PASSWORD is what we entered initially in lowercase, and let's go ahead and save that in the password vault for convenience and see if it works. A successful MySQL connection was made with the parameters defined for this connection. We're in business. Okay. With the connection tested, let's go ahead and open a connection and log in as Jones. All right. We're ready to go with the next video. Once logged in as the Jones user, let's try some SQL queries and see what we can and cannot do with our limited privileges. Now let's enter some query commands and see what the Jones user is privileged to do and what he's prevented from doing. I'll paste my query in, and let's select Use TAL. That succeeded. He's using the TAL database. Let's make a select from the customer table. That worked as well. Now let's attempt to do an insert. Remember, we did not grant insert privileges. Should this work? Let's see. It did not work. Let's see why not. Looking at the error code, insert command denied to user Jones at localhost for table customer. That's consistent with the privileges that we intended to grant to user Jones. User Jones was granted the ability to select on the customer table. User Jones was not granted the privilege to insert. In fact, if we come under the schemas and look at the tables, even if we refresh it, we see only the customer table under the User Jones account. User Jones cannot see, explore, or modify any of the other tables for which Jones has not been granted privilege. Finally, let's resume our root privilege login, and let's revoke the privileges for user Jones. Now let's clean up and remove the privileges that we granted to user Jones by revoking them. First, we'll no longer need the Jones connection, so let's go ahead and delete it. We'll log back in as the super user or the root account. Let's issue the opposite of the grant command. Let's issue the revoke. Let's revoke the select privilege on the TAL customer table from the user Jones account. The revoke executed successfully. We can also clean up the user account from the server. If we go to Server, Users and Privileges, if we are finished with this account, we can delete it. Even though an unprivileged account would seem safe, it is security best practice to delete accounts that are not currently in use. This concludes the lesson.